أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وبه نستعين وصلى الله على محمد وأهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين آمين يا رب العالمين. Assalamu alaikum, brothers and sisters. A very quick video and a thought experiment for your tafakkur and tadabbur, and this is particularly for those people who say, how can it be that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala orders us, or Rasulallah sallallahu alayhi wa alayhi orders us to honor sinners from the Sayyids. And this doesn't make sense. So in this regards, we're going to be looking at both of them, and compare them to each other. So we have honoring parents versus honoring the Sayyids. Let's start with Surah Al-Ahqaf, verse 15. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. وَوَصَّيْنَا الْإِنسَانَ بِوَالِدَيْهِ إِحْسَانًا حَمَلَتْهُ أُمُّهُ كُرْهًا وَوَضَعَتْهُ كُرْهًا. We have commanded people to honor their parents. Their mothers bore them in hardship and delivered them in hardship. Likewise, we find in Surah Luqman, verse 14. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. وَوَصَّيْنَا الْإِنسَانَ بِوَالِدَيْهِ حَمَلَتْهُ أُمُّهُ وَهْنًا عَلَى وَهْنٍ. And we have commanded people to honor their parents. So we have commanded people to honor their parents. Their mothers bore them through hardship upon hardship. Thoughts that we can engage in now. Is there any doubt that Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wasallam suffered more than any Nabi, nay, any Rasul, nay, any human in delivering the message? Therefore, the respect of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wasallam is far above the rest of human beings, including parents, in the eyes of Allah, as Allah has linked honoring parents to their sacrifice. So that's the standard that Allah has set. And by that standard, Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi is the first and foremost in respect. We find in Surah Luqman, that's the next verse, verse number 15. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. وَإِن جَاهَدَاكَ عَلَىٰ أَن تُشْرِكَ بِي مَا لَيْسَ لَكَ بِهِ عِلْمٌ فَلَا تُطِعْهُمَا وَصَاحِبْهُمَا فِي الدُّنْيَا مَعْرُوفًا. But if they pressure you to associate with me what you have no knowledge of, do not obey them. Still keep their company in this world courteously. So we learn that Allah is saying, even if they ask you to commit shirk, do not obey them, but still be courteous towards them and accompany them. Ya Allah, you are asking us to be courteous to mushrikeen, to honor mushrikeen. Or Ya Allah, are you making the honoring of parents your worship? As we mentioned in episode 14 of the Sayyids series, we are required to honor the nisbah of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wasallam for his sake. And Allah makes the sake of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wasallam his own sake. Now, just as a brain exercise, what objections do people have towards honoring parents? One could be, I am better than my parents in deen. Why should I honor them? Likewise, someone can come along and talk about Sayyids and say, just like this. Someone can come along and say, why should I honor a Sayyid who I am more religious than, or more God-fearing than him? Isn't taqwa the basis of honor? And my parents, in the case that we the objection that we mentioned, they don't have as much taqwa as compared to myself. Therefore, I am more worthy of honor by the verse of the Holy Quran. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Inna akramakum indallahi atqakum. The difference is that the honoring of parents is based on the worship of Allah. Solely, this is the basis. And this is irrespective of their sins. They cannot ask you to disobey Allah, but you honor them regardless. Likewise, honoring a Sayyid who is not pious is linked to honoring Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi, which is linked to the worship of Allah. Someone could come along and say, other parents are better than my parents. They do things better. They are worthy of respect, not my parents. Likewise, people say only pious Sayyids should be respected, as so-and-so Sayyid is sinful. The basis of honoring the parents in that example is the link to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and His worship, and the honoring of Sayyids in this case is honoring the nisbah to Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi, which in turn is linked to the worship of Allah. Another person can come and say, my parents drink, gamble, lie, cheat, steal, destroy, abuse, do all kinds of things. I still have to honor them. You see? Likewise, they say, what? I have to honor a Sayyid who drinks, gambles, lies, cheats, and steals? I am better than that Sayyid. Why should I honor them? You still have to honor your parents because the parents' deeds are dealt with by Allah separately. In the case of Sayyids, likewise, they get double punishment for the very same nisbah that they are dishonoring. So honoring a Sayyid is not because of his deeds, but the nisbah with Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alayhi. Another person comes and says, my parents abuse their position and keep using their status in the Quran to force me to respect them. They are arrogant. You've seen this, isn't it? That when sometimes in some situations, parents say, don't you know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has told you to honor your parents, not to be disrespectful to your parents? And some people respond and say, yeah, you don't follow Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in other situations. You're very selective. You're using it for arrogance. You're using it to, show yourself to be superior to us. We're all Banu Adam. You are Banu Adam just like I am. We both go to heaven and hell. We both have accounting. But you honoring your parents, brothers and sisters, is not because of their deeds. It's because of their status in the Quran and the traditions of Ahlul Bayt. Likewise, people say, Sayyids use their connection to ask people to honor Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam through them. This is arrogance. They can't come and start to ask people to respect them. They're highlighting themselves. They're making themselves bigger than what they are. They're acting special. We're all Banu Adam. We're all children of Nabi Adam alayhi salam. No, it is a reminder from the parents when they tell you to fear Allah with regards to them. It's a reminder to be dutiful to Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi, and through that way to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The parents remind you to obey Allah through obeying them. Some may argue that parents did not fulfill their responsibilities adequately, and therefore they feel no obligation to honor them. However, the Quran commands to honor parents. The Quran's command to honor parents is unconditional and not contingent upon the level of care or provision they offered or provided. Similarly, when it comes to a Sayyid, some may argue that a particular Sayyid has done nothing for them personally. You don't even know them. You've never seen them before. Right? They've done nothing for you. And therefore they do not deserve respect that you would give to someone that you know. The counterpoint here is that the obligation to honor a Sayyid is not based on their personal relationship with you, but their nisbah to Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alayhi. This lineage must, just like the parent-child bond, is inherently sacred in Islam. So the common denominator is what? Between Sayyids and parents is love for Allah. So when I mean respecting Sayyids and parents, it's the love for Allah and those things which are His hurma or sanctity and the sanctity of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alayhi. Now, someone may come and say, okay, suppose I were to accept these arguments. How can I honor a Sayyid do I have to honor them equally? That's unfair. No, nobody's asking you to give equal treatment to a pious Sayyid and a non-pious Sayyid. What's being asked, brothers and sisters, is to keep that baseline of respect. How far above you go over that baseline is you can base that on his piety. But you are required to honor Sayyids for their nisbah to Rasulallah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi at the baseline level. Another thing somebody could ask is, what do you mean by honoring and respecting? It depends on your personality. It's a matter between you and Allah and you and Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi. It depends on your personality. If there's a person who goes around, this doesn't really happen. This is a bit of an extreme example, but let's say somebody goes around, but you'll get the points when I've mentioned the example. If someone goes around slapping everybody they see who's drinking, and they see a Sayyid who's drinking and they skip him, so on a normal basis, as they live their life, when they come across someone who's drinking, they come along and they insult them or slap them or something like this. And then one day they come across a Sayyid and they don't say anything to that Sayyid. That may be honoring based on the personality of the person. For somebody else, honoring is something different. For somebody else, honoring is something different. This is what we are to understand. So now we've compared two examples, honoring parents versus honoring Sayyids, and how we can learn something from these. And some things, so as a conclusion, the two things we can extract from this, just to put a seal on the knot. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. An-Nabiyyu awla bil-mu'minina min anfusihim. The Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wasallam has more rights over the believers than they have over themselves. So you are honoring your sinful parents. Those drunkard, sinful, hypothetically, for the sake of the example. I'm sure your parents are lovely people, but this is just an example. If you have a drunkard, sinful, cheating, gambler kind of parents, right? Abusive parents, then in that situation, you're still honoring them. But now you are honoring Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi, who has more authority over them than they have over themselves as well. Right? And this is reflected when we say, don't we all say, Bi-abi anta wa ummi ya Rasulallah. Bi-abi anta wa ummi ya Rasulallah. Sallallahu alayka wa alika wa sallam. May my mother and father be a sacrifice to you. Ya Rasulullah. Sallallahu alayka wa alika wa sallam. Let's pay attention to this and reflect on this. And understand that this advice I'm giving to you is not for me. It's not for other Sayyids. It is for your relation with Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi. It is to it's to benefit you in your afterlife, to benefit your spirituality, to take you to greater levels. Just as a small point, even though I was supposed to end it here, but I'll go ahead and give you just some more thoughts. The companion and wakil, the agents of Imam Hassan al-Askari alayhi salam, who was also the wakil, the agent of Imam Ali al-Hadi alayhi salam before Imam al-Askari alayhi salam. Right? He was not permitted to be disrespectful to a Sayyid who drank alcohol. That Sayyid drank alcohol, didn't he? We're talking about Ahmad. He served 2 Imams, and he was the wakil of both Imams. And these wakils are not selected just like that. Surely he has a great moral standard and good etiquette, and he's practicing, and he's spiritual, and he does all the things that are required of him. Hence, he was selected for such a high position. Now, this wakil was still not allowed, despite the fact he was doing all of his other deeds, to dishonor that Sayyid Hussein from the descendants of Imam Ja'far as-Sadiq alayhi salam, specifically from the descendants of Ismail al-A'raj, the son of Ja'far as-Sadiq alayhi salam. He was not allowed to disrespect him. And how did the Imam respond to him? The Imam responded when he refused to open the door for that Sayyid, and that Sayyid went away. The Imam refused to open the door to him. And when it was inquired from the Imam, I am of your supporters, why didn't you open the door to me? He said, you turned away our cousin from your doorstep. Let this be a point of reflection for our brothers and sisters. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.